Who is Joe Rogan? He's the guy your gym bro listens to while bench pressing. The guy your uncle quotes when talking about aliens, elk meat, or cancel culture. And the guy who went from telling jokes on stage to becoming one of the most powerful voices in the world. Joe Rogan is a comedian, UFC commentator, and host of the JoeRoganExperience, the podcast that gets millions of views per episode and has literally changed how people get their news. But beyond the mic, who is Joe Rogan? Today, we're diving deep into his lifestyle. His wife, kids, houses, cars, daily rituals, and how he quietly built a $200 million empire. Before the podcast studio and the million-dollar deals, Joe Rogan was just a kid from Newark, New Jersey. He was born in 1967, and his early life wasn't exactly picture perfect. His parents split up when he was very young, and Joe has talked openly about growing up without a strong father figure. At age 7, he moved with his mom to the Boston area, where he spent most of his childhood. As a teenager, Joe was obsessed with martial arts. Not football, not video games, taekwondo and kickboxing. By age 19, he was already a full-contact champion. This discipline, physical and mental, would shape his entire life. But behind the trophies, there was a real concern: injuries. Joe started getting headaches and began worrying about long-term damage. So at just 21, he decided to stop competing. That's when he started thinking about what's next. For a short time, he went to the University of Massachusetts in Boston. But college didn't feel right. He dropped out to chase something else. Something he didn't even plan. Even though Joe never planned to become a comedian, the spark was always there. He had this thing he loved: making people laugh. At the gym, at the taekwondo school, between training rounds, he'd tell jokes, do impressions, and just mess around. But what really hit him was Richard Pryor's special live Sunset Strip. Joe once said it blew his mind. Nothing had ever made him laugh that hard before. And the more he joked around, the more his friends started pushing him. So at 21, Joe finally listened. He spent 6 months writing jokes, testing material, and practicing in front of anyone who would listen. He wasn't rushing it. He wanted to get it right. And then came the night, August 27th, 1988, Stitch's Comedy Club in Boston. Just him, a mic, and a small crowd. To keep himself going in those early days, Joe worked all sorts of jobs. Teaching martial arts, delivering newspapers, driving a limo, even doing construction. Whatever paid the rent. His comedy style back then was raw and unfiltered. The kind of humor that got him gigs at bachelor parties and strip clubs. One night, he convinced a Boston club owner to let him do a quick 5-minute set. That performance caught the eye of Jeff Sussman, a talent manager who offered to represent him. Joe said yes. And in 1990, he packed his bags and moved to New York City to chase comedy full-time. It wasn't easy. He struggled to find gigs and money was tight. He stayed with his grandfather to save money and spent months chasing gigs while refining his act. He looked up to comedians like Richard Jeni, Sam Kinison, and Bill Hicks. They inspired him to go deeper, be bolder. Eventually, Joe moved to Los Angeles, and that's when doors started to open. He got his first real TV break on MTV's half-hour comedy hour, which led to even bigger opportunities. In the mid-90s, he landed a role on the NBC sitcom News Radio. That show ran for 5 seasons and helped him build a wider audience. It also gave him the confidence and paycheck to keep pushing. Then came something unexpected: the UFC. At first, Joe was just a fan. He knew martial arts inside and out. So when the UFC offered him a backstage interviewer role, he jumped in. By the early 2000s, he became the voice of UFC commentary. Fans loved how real he was. No fake hype, no sugarcoating. just honest reactions and deep fight knowledge.
Anything we need to know, as soon as I find out, you'll know. Back to you guys.
But his biggest success, that came with a microphone and no rules. In 2009, Joe started the Joe Rogan Experience, a podcast recorded in a simple room with a few mics and a lot of opinions. At first, it was casual. Then it exploded. Today, his podcast pulls in millions of views per episode, features everyone from Elon Musk to everyday thinkers, and changed the podcast game forever. In 2020, Spotify signed Joe to an exclusive deal rumored to be worth $100 million. By 2023, he renegotiated for even more. Joe's life is surprisingly grounded. He's been married to Jessica Ditzel since 2009. She mostly stays out of the spotlight, but they've built a quiet life together in Austin, Texas, where they raise their 2 daughters, plus Jessica's daughter from a previous relationship, who Joe helped raise as his own. They live in a $14 million mansion with a gym, a float tank, a podcast studio, and even an archery range. Joe also owns a private hunting ranch outside the city where he spends time bow hunting elk and disconnecting from the noise. He's into cold plunges and saunas, weightlifting and martial arts, carnivore diet, psychedelics, meditation, and a lot of reading. He's described himself as a curious ape in a meat vehicle, part philosopher, part fighter. Joe follows a mostly carnivore-style diet, lots of elk, steak, eggs, and mushrooms. He often eats meat he hunted himself. He avoids sugar and processed carbs, and sometimes adds fruits or bone broth, depending on how he feels. For him, food isn't just fuel. What he eats affects how he trains, sleeps, and thinks. Joe Rogan is a huge car guy, especially when it comes to muscle cars and custom builds. One of his favorites is a 1970 Plymouth Barracuda, completely modified by Speed Corey with carbon fiber and a Hellcat engine. It's loud, fast, and totally Rogan. He also owns a Tesla Model S Plaid for speed and silence, a Porsche 911 GT3 RS, a custom Chevelle SS, and a classic 1965 Corvette Stingray. He said in interviews that cars are one of the few material things he really enjoys. As of 2025, Joe Rogan's net worth is estimated at around $200 million. These days, the bulk of his income comes from the podcast with millions of listeners and a massive Spotify deal that changed the entire industry. In addition to that, he still earns from UFC commentary and smart early investments like Onnit, the supplement company he helped build into a fitness brand. He lives a disciplined, focused life, training daily, hunting his own food, and spending time with friends, family, and thinkers he respects. Are you someone who follows Joe Rogan regularly? Or do you fall into the group that just finds him hard to ignore? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear where you stand.